Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the final session of Briefing 5P 2020, our virtual version of our 6-year strong 5P conference. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This afternoon session, we are back to P for pricing after a fashion. We are asking, how do you successfully compete on value rather than on rates? And leading this session, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Eddie Hartman, who is a partner at the strategy consultancy, strategy experts, Simon-Kucher Partners. And Eddie was also one of the founders of the business LegalZoom, serving as both the Chief Technology Officer and the Chief Product Officer of that business for more than a decade. He's also the co-author of the upcoming book, Pricing for Growth. Welcome, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Richard. Just one moment and I'll share my slides. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I'm calling from California. And I wanted to begin with an introduction, sort of why in the world should you listen to me about any of this? So just a quick bona fides. In addition to being an individual who came to law rather late in life, from the great state of New Jersey, which is, we know, where all truth comes from, I did found LegalZoom, which is the oldest unicorn. It's the oldest privately held company worth more than $1 billion, founded in the sort of technology era. I also helped get a company off the ground called Ironclad, which now has 75 million of investment from Sequoia, a very great legal tech company helping general counsels to keep their house in order, as well as advising some other companies which are getting a lot of attention in the US. Lectured at Yale Law and Stanford Law and had positions there. And I'm a charter member of the Hague Institute for International Law Committee on Justice. But I think most people know me from my past position at LegalZoom, where I was Chief Product Officer. And what that primarily meant was finding ways to help people solve their legal problems. Many people who know LegalZoom think of it as a technology play, and it is to an extent. But really what we were doing was fitting attorneys, fitting lawyers into a platform to provide service to SMEs and to a limited extent consumers. This meant lots and lots and lots of attorney consultations, which meant in exchange, as a knock-on effect, I had to manage a very broad network of law firms to do this servicing in not only the US, but increasingly abroad. So this would be Beaumont, which was acquired in 2015 and has been run as part of LegalZoom ever since. Now, I left LegalZoom in 2016 and became part of Simon-Kucher Partners, where I'm now very happily a partner in California. Many people do not know the name Simon-Kucher, but have been impacted by Simon-Kucher because Simon-Kucher is, I think, simply the world's leader when it comes to price and understanding how price affects nearly everything that we do. What do I mean by that? Fundamentally, price and value are in many ways the same thing. The Latin word, the old Latin word for price, pretium, also meant value. It was the same thing. One is a counterpart of the other. And when we think about units of measure, if you meant to measure fluid or a distance or the weight of a can of soda, we've got standard measures for doing so. We know how to do that, right? We've got yards, we've got meters, we've got grams. When it comes to value, how do we measure value? I would submit that if you could stack up the dollars that you're willing to pay for something, or the pounds or euros or yen or whatever it might be, and measure that stack, that is a measure of value. That is a way that we can say, what is it exactly that a person derives from our effort? Now, laws had a bit of a disconnect. So this is the rate of progression of fees. And I used to ask my class at Stanford, if this rate is going up every year, why is it that law firm bookings have not been going up at this rate? And the answer is, of course, that we don't collect this rate. Our collection against that rate is quite a bit lower. So why in the world would we be signaling these increasingly high prices and yet not collecting them? And the answer, of course, is that law falls into the third category of goods. Economists traditionally say there's a commodity good. Everyone knows what to pay for petrol. There's an experience good. You only know what you're willing to pay for it after you've experienced it, like eating at a restaurant or a movie or a book. But how about law? Like medicine, law is something you only know the worth of by believing in the provider. You are not actually sure what the benefit is of a given contract, for example. It almost certainly will never be actually put to the test. So what good was it? This is one of the reasons why we signal high prices. And this was an experiment that was done at Stanford. I think when they were allowed to do this sort of thing, they gave two groups of people shocks. This is real, until they experienced a headache. And then they gave each group a tablet to alleviate their headache. One group was told it was $2.50. The other group was told that it was 10 cents. Unsurprisingly, I think, based on the theme of today, the group that was told it was $2.50 experienced quite a bit more relief than the group that was told it was 10 cents. So price, in other words, is a very difficult thing to remove from value. And yet today, we want to talk about, as a panel, how can we sell on value rather than price, even though price in so many ways in the industry of law connotes value. I want to also let you know we did some independent research at Simon-Kucher Partners, and we know this is a big problem because junior partners do not know how to set a rate that allows them to be competitive vis-a-vis senior partners. They don't know what the rules are. And I've literally seen junior partners in tears trying to understand how to negotiate this. But when we actually asked purchasers of legal time, they had a very different response. They showed much less price sensitivity than people within the law firm had thought. And they actually value other things quite a bit more. Continuity of the relationship, flexibility, the degree of client care, general legal expertise and reliability. All of these things matter much more than price. Do we see price down there at 61%? That's shocking. That's almost the lowest rated thing on this entire graph, isn't it? So why can't we sell more on value rather than price? I'm going to skip over AFAs. I think we've all been AFA'd to death a bit. But I also want to say, is this the right moment? Now, there are a number of forces that we traditionally analyze when we say, is it time for a change? Let's think about new entrants. Has it ever been easier to start a new law firm? I would say no. By the way, there's a cat on my desk. So sorry. Joys of working from home. Cat, I'm afraid you'll have to leave the conference. Never been easier to leave a firm, and increasingly easy for junior associates and associates at a firm to say, I'm not happy with the life, I'm going to start a new law firm. And they do. And we have statistics on this. Similarly, the ability of your counterparty, the purchaser of legal time, to bargain is radically improved. Technology, so I consult with Wolters Kluwer quite frequently, and Wolters Kluwer is introducing technology to scrutinize our bills. They used to do it by hand, but now machine learning can keep a constant watch over everything that's put forward in an invoice to a client. Furthermore, you're not dealing with a general counsel as much as you're dealing with legal operations or potentially procurement or potentially both. All of this is raising the bar in terms of customer bargaining power. And when we think about the substitutes, large, well-funded alternative legal service providers like Lawyers on Demand in the UK, Axiom Legal, Flex by Fenwick, all of these are creating quite a bit of change. And of course, the regulatory changes, first in the UK with the Legal Services Act of 2007, but now we see major accounting firms coming and competing as well. And in the US, there was just a ruling in the state of Arizona that will permit full-fledged non-lawyer ownership of a law firm, which of course could permit national brands in the US and beyond to act as law firms, even though they're in fact in the US, what would be a C corporation. Finally, we see that geography is no longer as much of a factor, particularly in the COVID era. As geographic barriers fall, we see traditional non-compete in organizations that wouldn't be competing, being able to compete quite a bit more swiftly and oftentimes on quite level footing. So when I bring this all together, I'd like to introduce my panel, but I think it's the right time to ask ourselves, is it time for a change? is this the right moment to think about value selling? We're so lucky to have Kirsty Shenton, head of client care at Mills Reeve, Leila Aslam, the general counsel and company secretary at Waterstones, and last but not least, Dan Kane, general counsel of Network Rail, but also the creator of what I understand is almost a movement, the concept of the O-shaped lawyer. Very interesting stuff, very related to value. But I'd like to begin with Kirsty. I'll stop my presentation and allow people to open up their video. So starting with you, Kirsty, do you think that this is the right moment for us to begin trying to sell on value rather than on price?
Absolutely. Thanks, Eddie. And hello, everybody this afternoon. Should I turn my video on? Oh, I'm not allowed to turn my video on. The host has stopped it. Okay, never mind. Okay.
Denise, I wonder if you wouldn't mind turning on her video.
Okay, no worries. I can just talk. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's you know, we have an ever competitive market, and I think it's a really difficult conundrum, isn't it? Value versus price. I think the perception of value is different for every client, and value is very much a personalised journey, and one which is, I think, is really underpinned by understanding and context. I think it's really it's wrong of us to assume what we think our clients see as value, and one of the worst things we can do is just offer them a shopping list of what we perceive as added value because it's so personalised to them. Mills Reeve did quite an interesting project about 10 months ago. We looked at a really forward-thinking piece of research, client listening project, and we went out to a significant number of our clients, not asking them about how are Mills Reeve doing, but asking them what they perceive to be the most important things that they're going to get from their legal advisors looking forward. And we did it on a 5-year period. And interestingly, the one thing that came back from that piece of work was that still, in the context of everything that happens in our market, how important relationships are. And what do we mean by relationships? Because it's something we all talk about, you know, an awful lot. But it's this willingness to get under the skin of the client, and for them to know that we're invested in them, that we understand their business, we understand their industry, and we really understand them as individuals as well, and what their wants and needs are. And I think that is the point that we can then start to understand how we deliver value to that individual client. And I think the concept is not just, it's not good enough just for a client partner to understand the client and their business, but it's about the whole team, and for them to really have that passion for what they're trying to achieve, and to almost take an emotional stake in achieving the goals of the client. And that's where we really start to get value, I think. One of the things our research showed is that in the context of all the alternative suppliers, that there's lots of technology, there's lots of innovation. Actually, legal services remains a human business. And that really resonates with what you just said in your opener there, Eddie, about the fact that you've got to believe in the provider. And how do you get your clients to believe in you? And that's about that partnership, and we've all said it a million times, is trusted advisor. But it's knowing, it's articulating to the clients that you've got their back, that you know what's going to happen. You're estimating their risk on a basis that they want you to estimate their risk on. And you know, this always brings us to cost transparency. And you know, over my long career with the legal sector, cost transparency isn't a new concept, but boy, is it still really important. And I suspect that we all know what it is, and we all get it, but do we all deliver it? And I think that sort of comes down into the granularity of value. It's, you know, Can we scope? Can we use pricing innovation? You know, we all talk about fixed fees, cap fees, all the different formats, but that doesn't mean anything unless we stick to it. And it's just about where we can really understand what the value is that the client wants and deliver to that, and not make any assumptions. And I think you know, the one of the comments that kept coming out all the time from our research was, let's deliver on outcomes rather than input. And I think, you know, that really underpins what everybody wants: a value outcome from whatever the project is, the matter, the transaction. And let's set those objectives and actually deliver to that outcome rather than what we're putting into it.
Excellent, Kirsty. And although I want to go to Dan next and really ask him the same question, the research that you mentioned, will that be available to people after this session?
Yeah, absolutely. We put all the huge amounts of insight into a report which is called Building Resilience, and that's really what it's about. It's about helping our clients to build resilience for a world that gets more unknown by the day, it seems. And yes, it's absolutely available, and I'm very happy to share it with anybody who'd like a copy.
I have to say, audience, I have seen this document and it is fantastic. It's packed with research, very cogent. I think, you know, many of us actually have research packets that we can make available, but I would urge you to look through this one, as it's just so very solid and factual. Dan, I'd like to go to you next. Would you please tell me, in your own opinion, is this the right time for us to be considering a change to value selling rather than price?
Thanks, Eddie. And again, I don't think I can start with it. Let's see if that's working. No, it's not. So I'll just talk, and if it does change, oh, there you go, it's working now. So firstly, thanks for the introduction, and as we go through and talk, I'll give you a little bit of a feel for why I think the O-shaped lawyer exercise is completely consistent with this question of value. Is it the right time? Look, we've never been in the kind of situation that we are faced with right now. So if there's ever a time for people to reflect on how they deliver their service, then now is that time. Any organization, I'm sure, represented on this call will be hunkered down in some shape or form, looking at what the future may hold post-COVID. And for law firms that, in particular, where we've had decades of a very similar approach to things like value and pricing, now really is that fire break in some respects to be able to take a look and see, is what we're doing genuinely valuable to our client base? If you step back and look at what value means, it means different things to different people. And Kirsty, I think, said things that I agree with entirely. The customer perspective is clearly, you know, paramount to this. But if you asked all law firms and simply asked them the question, do you provide value to your clients? I imagine you should get back a resounding yes. But perhaps what Kirsty alludes to is the customer perspective, the client perspective is really the most valuable thing here about what we mean by value as in price. What you shared in terms of the graph where price was lower down, I wholeheartedly endorse that. Look, as a buyer of legal services, we let our contract a couple of years ago, a 5-year contract worth £75 million. It's a massive amount of money, and yet what we got back in terms of bids was overall rather poor. And when we're looking at the kind of money that's at stake, and the shopping window is the tenders that we get, there's very little creativity around how people want to demonstrate value. And Kirsty mentioned the added value, which seems to be such a constant in law firm tenders that look at all this value we can add. Well, if you don't know what is valuable to the client, then it's very difficult to say, well, this is added on top. I also want to just very quickly mention, Eddie, your reference there. I like those slides where you showed about, well, how do you determine this? And it's very similar to medicine. There is no doubt that when we receive a service that is of a very high quality, that price features less in the discussion because of essentially customer satisfaction. And we think, wow, that was fabulous. And your example I quite liked on, of a restaurant, and you're paying for a restaurant. But coming back to that, and maybe just a slight take on that, why do you pay so much money to go to a Michelin-starred restaurant when it is, for the average person, lethally expensive to do so? The food is still going to be the food of the same size of plate you're going to get. And ultimately, the skill that goes into the craft is going to be of a very high standard. But you're also paying for the overall user experience, the customer experience that goes with paying the kind of money that you're going to pay when you go to a high-end restaurant. Now, law firms have a similar premium when it comes to the cost, but I would strongly argue that the customer experience is very different. And there's a phrase that I often come back to, which is people will forget what you did and what you said, but they'll never forget how it made you feel. And I think that there is a real gap at the moment between customer centricity at law firms. Again, law firms will all say they are the most customer centric, and the experience that general counsel are feeling at the other end, and the users and end users of that service. So just to sum up, you asked the question of, is now the time? Now is the perfect time to start thinking differently about this. We've had 30, 40, 50 years of the same. If ever there is a burning platform with all the Porter's 5 forces you described, I think it is now.
Jen, thank you so much. What an elegant summary. Layla, congratulations on all the bookseller awards that Waterstone has been getting recently, by the way. But same question to you. I would love to hear your opinion on whether this is the right moment. Maybe build, because I'd just be fascinated to hear your view on some of the points that Dan has made about how does good value feel? How do you know?
Thanks, Eddie. I can't actually claim responsibility for any of those awards, but happy to take some.
In my experience, do it anyway. Just claim no one knows.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just do a very, very brief intro. So I've been at Waterstones now for a whole 4 months and I think 10 days. So quite new to this business, and starting during a global pandemic and working almost entirely remotely is a challenge in itself. And I am sole counsel here. And why that's important to say is that, sorry, somebody's saying that they can't see me, but my video is showing.
I think we can see you now.
Okay, great. So sorry, the introduction was necessary because the backdrop to me being here is that, I've started midway. I've not had a proper handover. I've not had that time invested to get to grips with the business. So is now the right time for value? Absolutely, in my books, and I echo what both Kirsty and Dan have said so far. It's a unique time. I think everybody is struggling. My personal struggles here is that what do I need? From a trusted advisor, it's that reliable shoulder to lean on. And actually, in the position that I'm in at the moment, it's knowing that there are firms and lawyers and individuals out there who know this business better than I do, who've worked with this business longer than I have, and that for me is value in itself. And it's not just about selling on more work, it's bringing to the table that experience, that knowledge, that insight, and understanding my current position, and showing value in a way that's very personal and bespoke to me. And it's a difficult one to measure, because how do you do that? And there are some obvious ways of doing it. It's that sort of building that client relationship, it's investing that time, and spending time trying to get to know me as a person, how I work, and also the organization itself, if you don't already know it. And yes, absolutely now, because competition is strife, there's so many disruptors in the market. I'm constantly being approached by Axiom and its competitors and so forth to say, well, why not use us? And everybody's trying to save money at the moment, for obvious reasons. And it's always, cost cutting is always at the forefront of everyone's mind, and then it's put onto legal spend almost immediately. So why wouldn't I use the alternative structures? What do I need? Why would I be prepared to pay more? And absolutely, it's that thing that you can't quite quantify, and it's that feeling that you get. And it's not always the right fit. So as Dan said, why would you always pay for that sort of Michelin star restaurant? But sometimes you want that really great food, that great setting, the feeling, you feel important when you walk in, somebody takes your coat. It's the entire experience itself. And sometimes you want that. And sometimes you do just want that sort of quick and dirty meal. So it's making sure that your law firm, your advisors understand what you need and when. And that's not always easy to understand or easy to achieve. So yes, it involves time, it involves effort, and a lot of it is we're individuals. Legal advice, it's ultimately you are buying the person. You're not buying a product, you're buying a person. So it's that person investing that time in you, and it's definitely a two-way street. I have to be able to open the door and invite them in, and make sure that I'm offering up enough. So that we can reach that that place together.
Leila, one of the things that fits into that category, remember the three categories that Dan mentioned, you've got the search good, which is a commodity, you've got the experience good, which is the restaurant, then you've got the credence good, we just have to believe in the outcome. Medicine is one of them. That's why we wound up with medical tests that we didn't need and medical procedures that we didn't need, because we don't even know what the expected outcome ought to be oftentimes. Law is one, obviously. Mechanics, auto mechanics are another group. And people say, look, one thing you ought to do, if the mechanic says you need a new fan belt, after the procedure, ask to see the old fan belt. Otherwise, potentially nothing was done at all. Now, you mentioned a strong shoulder to lean on, right? I'm going to turn this to Dan and say, is there a way that a law firm can convey that to you? Because if Leila is saying that's one of the most important things that she seeks, how in the world do we convey that? How in the world do we signal and communicate? We are, when you're evaluating firms, this is a firm that will provide that essential strong shoulder to lean on.
Yeah, so this has been right at the heart of some of the research we've done on the O-shaped lawyer, and now the practice we're putting into play, which is asking GCs who they want to work with, why they want to work with them. And essentially it boiled down to this. They say that knowledge of the law is table stakes. That is effectively your entry point. Understanding the business and understanding the sector within which we operate is the second level. And this ability, this last bit, funnily enough, which is about creating value. That bit where lawyers are not just there to add value, create value. So they're going a bit further in terms of what the GCs are asking for. Now, how have we tried to then synthesize that into something a bit more practical? We started a series of pilots. We're now 7 pilots in between in-house teams and private practice firms with small groups on each side to start testing whether or not working in a wholly different way, applying the O-shaped thinking, the attributes that the GCs came up with. And then what you experience is almost this immersive way of working, which is a much more frequent, regular interaction, rather than what we often see which is the quarterly meeting between law firm and client. And that quarterly meeting, by the way, between law firm and client, clients don't like it, law firms don't like it, but we turn up, law firm thinks it's going to get a bashing, client thinks, my God, this is a right pay, and we have to go through this exercise and look back 3 months and complain about something. No one likes it. So what we've tried to do is to take a much more real-time approach to actual work and apply a different set of principles to it. So coming back to why is this relevant to your question about having that genuine partner, that's someone that you can trust, because we know that trust at law firms, if you ask the general population, trust is often pretty low. And there was a study carried out in the UK a few years ago, which asked whether or not people trusted their lawyer or trusted lawyers. And 50% said no. And they were the ones who actually never use lawyers. Those that use lawyers, the answer was 40%. So, we've got this problem with trust in our profession. So what are we doing? Well, these, I hope, much more frequent interactions allow you to truly get to understand the people you're working with. And you cannot do that when you have infrequent relationships with your so-called partner. Strategic partnership is almost the buzzword at the moment when it comes to having relationships between clients and law firms. And it is, as we've described, a two-way process. And that's why we've set these things up to say, these two parts of the team need to come together and create one team. Lots of other professions can do it. You see consultants go in and embed themselves with their clients, so they are so immersed, they're living and breathing the values of that client. But for law firms, it's really hard when you're one step removed from what's going on in the client environment. So we're trying to bring the law firms almost into the client environment. They're now coming to some of our team meetings internally, so they can see all things laid bare, warts and all, what it's like to be us. And we want to see the transparency that's been mentioned about what it's like to be the law firm. That's how you build trust. That's how you build valuable relationships.
Excellent. I'd like to take that exact comment over to Kirsty if I can. Because, again, I've read your research. You state that law firms will need to provide this strategic thinking. I think exactly what we just heard from Dan, to business scenarios and help businesses to deal with uncharted challenges and opportunities. In your view, is this already expected of law firms? Is this just table stakes? Or does this actually enable better revenue realization? And if it's the latter, then how?
That's a really good question, Eddie, and I think it's both. I think it's sort of two-sided. Dan's talked about strategic partnerships. I think that sort of tracks back to that piece around what relationships are, and if you go to any law firm, any professional advisors, about their relationship with their clients, but I think it's really understanding what that is. And we've never have we seen it more than the last few months in terms of our clients, where we really do have that kind of strategic partnership with them, and their ability to lean on us when the going's got really tough. And sometimes that leaning on us is just picking the phone up saying, what the hell do we do next, because we really don't know what's coming down the track, or in a much more formal basis where there is a specific issue that we need to look at. But I think is it expected? I think clients expect it. Do we always meet the brief? I'm not sure we do. I think we try. And will it help us realize better revenue? Absolutely. I think that when you immerse yourselves in a client's business, and we have this process within Mills Reeve that we refer to as personas. So if you go back to the old days of sort of consumer marketing and the process of segmentation, I'm sure we've all been through this process many a time. If you think about that, that's a very formulaic way of splitting down customers. If you take the concept of a persona and you apply that, because this is a service industry and it's wholly based on personalities and an emotional response, and it's actually that we need to understand about our clients, and it's only when we really get into the bones of that. So it's understanding, how do they make decisions? Why do they make the decisions they do? What's going on in their organization? So if I take Layla or Dan, who are they reporting to? Where is our advice going? And how can we help them, I suppose in simple terms, look good in terms of the people they're reporting to, and understanding their risk profile and what's happening in their lives generally. And it's this kind of immersion in what is going on with the clients. And that's exactly what Dan was saying. That's when you can really start to create value. And the other buzzword at the moment is innovation. And innovation always tends to get lumped in with technology. And I have a slightly skewed view of that, is that innovation comes first. And what is innovation? And I think innovation is the advisor's ability to be agile, to spot market opportunities, and then sometimes technology is an enabler of that, and sometimes it isn't, because sometimes it's just a different way of thinking, and it's taking this personalization of value and really applying that in a personalized way. And I think that's where, yes, it's expected. I'm not sure our clients always understand what they think value is, and a lot of the time it's our job to show it, and that's where you'll really get the revenue realization.
I'd love to go to Layla and ask about Waterstones and innovation, just the way that Kirsty's saying, which I think it's part technology, but also part almost emotional innovation, bravery. But I know Richard had wanted to comment. Richard?
I was just going to jump in actually to say to everybody watching and listening, we're going to keep this open forum at the moment rather than break into smaller groups. So if you do have any questions, now is the time to make them known just by popping them in the chat there, and we will put them to Dan, Layla, and Kirsty. Or indeed, of course, if you've got any questions for Eddie, do please put them to him. I did have one question myself, actually, to get the ball rolling, which is I wondered, Dan and maybe Layla as well, whether you had noticed whether law firms had become a bit more O-shaped, whether naturally or through hard work, I suppose, over this year, and with all the challenges that this year has placed on all aspects of operations, I suppose, but including client relationships.
I don't know, Layla, if you want to respond. Entirely up to you. Yes, I think, I'm not in the place of, and I hope certainly isn't the intention of saying that this is all about law firms changing. This is about a whole ecosystem that needs to change. So have law firms got it? Yes, because I think we've recognized by having this kind of interaction by video, we've made it a much more human-centric type of arrangement with our firms. We start to see people in a very different light, and all of a sudden the game face that lots of lawyers, both in-house and in private practice, live with has been stripped away bare. And I think that's a great thing, because we want to see authenticity in the people we work with, transparency. We want to understand a bit more about them and their personal lives, so that we can really empathize with what they are going through themselves, because this is a tough time for everyone. And I've seen in our team and in our organization just the impact it's having, for example, on mental health across the organization. And so if we don't start to take the opportunity, and firms don't start to open up the conversation in a slightly different way, then not only does that make me feel, well, you're not really my partner, because if you've got a partner, you would expect them to want to know and care how you are. But also, I think they're just missing a massive opportunity here to really get under the skin of their client. But I think it's trended in the right direction, Richard, overall. I don't know whether Layla's in that place.
No, I'd agree, Dan. So, I mean, I've seen some sort of law firms do some what I'd call innovative things, and it's all about showing the human and sort of spending that added bit of time with their clients or prospective clients. And a couple of examples, one that sort of definitely spoke to me was women in leadership type positions. So this is in-house lawyers, it's CEOs, CFOs, and whatnot. And it's an evening call, and it's infrequent, but it's not we don't talk shop. We talk and it's just sharing the difficulties that people are having. And I think everyone's in the same boat at the moment, and some feel it more than others, working remotely, and it's quite difficult. And I absolutely, the point around, the game face is gone, and, the suits are stripped back, and you're in a living room where your cat might pop off onto your desk, or your child comes running in, and it's, that alone breaks down the barriers. So you don't have to go through that formal way of trying to be informal. The informality is there right in front of you, and that has helped a lot. But also the difficulty around it, from me starting in a new role, it's creating new relationships can also be difficult. As human beings, we do like to interact with one another. We want to meet one another, and lawyers are very good at that. Sort of the client-side entertainment. They are very good at that bit, more so than other organisations. Whether it be accountants or even in the technology world. So not having the ability to do that is a struggle. It's also difficult, for the side sort of receiving the service as well. But all in all, I think we're all in the same boat. We're trying our hardest. I think the point earlier was about innovation, and I also agree that innovation doesn't just mean technology. It's just doing what we normally do, but in a slightly different way. It's as simple as thinking outside of the box.
Interesting, thank you. We have had a question pop up from our very own Rupert Collins-White. What are the primary client-side misunderstandings around value pricing? I might go to Kirsty for that one, perhaps. I'm assuming that means Rupert could tell me, he's only over there. That means misunderstandings on the side of the client. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really different one. It goes right back to what I said at the beginning about value is a very personal thing. So what might be value for Layla might be something completely different for Dan, and I think the worst thing we can do is to and I think it was Dan earlier said, you know, if you're not delivering value, you can't add value. And we have this whole thing about having a big shopping list of things that are added value. And you know, you can offer helplines and secondees, but actually, if what your client needs is some office space in London to use one day a week and a good cup of coffee, that's value to them. And so I think where the misunderstanding is not actually in what we offer, it's the way we offer it and making sure that what we're offering is relevant to the client, rather than just here's a big shopping list of things that you might want to pick from.
Do you think, Dan or Layla, do you think that there are client-side misunderstandings, potentially?
Well, I'll give an example, and I don't know whether this is a misunderstanding and whose side the misunderstanding is. I'll confuse myself and all of us, but here's something that clearly is a miscommunication between where law firm and client is at. At the moment, clients are really pushing quite hard. I'm sure it's general for fixed fees. So fixed fees are kind of meant to be the way that we can get round this whole problem of the billable hour. The difficulty is that fixed fees, and it may be that Kirsty kind of alluded to this in your kind of opening, where I see fixed fees come in, and we do like it, it gives us certainty. And when it comes to fixed fee, again, there's a premium for a fixed fee because there's a risk share, and risk share is really starting to be more important. But where the concern I have with things like fixed fees is they're just based on the hourly rate. So you take how many hours you think it's going to take you to do, add some on, and that's your fixed fee. Where we're not getting to what's true value for me is that you start spending time shadow billing that fixed fee. You start to understand where is it that the waste is starting to take place. And when you've got an idea of where that waste is, we can start to remove that from the system. And all of a sudden, the next year round, that same job costs 10% less, 20% less. Law firm isn't losing out because law firm and client have together worked out that there are wastes that we can remove. That's, I think, the fallacy with fixed fee. Looks great when you're advertising it. Behind the scenes, it's very different. And that requires proper, genuine collaboration to understand what is it that's making that fee up and how can we together remove the waste from it. So we pay less, we get the same quality of service, but you still make the same level of profit because you're in the profit game as a law firm. And as a client, we have set out very clearly our two expectations. One is our clients are delighted, our internal customers. Two is that you continue to make the profit you want and more. Now, there's a real challenge that those two things don't align, and I would wholeheartedly disagree, but we've had that thrown at us. It can align, but it does require a much more transparent way of working with things like fixed fees. So I don't know if that's a miscommunication, Richard, but it seems to me that is a real problem we've got.
Thank you. And we've had another question from the group. Joe Leslie, thank you very much, who says, by the way, it's been really interesting, so that's very good to know. One of the challenges I've encountered working in other professional services with moving towards the sort of value-based approach that we're talking about here and more greater collaboration has been a lack of appetite from clients to engage beyond a purely transactional relationship. Inevitably, that leaves price as the key differentiator. The sentiment on the call is that this is less of a barrier in legal services, which is obviously great news, which is what we wanted. Is what we want to hear. But why would that be the case? Who would like to take that? I mean, Eddie, maybe you've got a view on this one.
I think it'd be a surprise for some people in legal services that that's the general case. I think we may be hearing the vanguard of a change. Dan, I'm so glad you brought up the concept of shadow billing. Oftentimes, you know, a client says, hey, I want a fixed fee, I want a fixed fee, I want a fixed fee. What does that really mean? That really means they want to break on the hourly rate. And at the end of it, all they're going to do is say, well, you worked a certain number of hours, and I know we agreed to a fixed fee, but you didn't work enough hours to really earn that fixed fee, right? And that happens again and again. So I do think that we need to move beyond the pure price equation if we're ever going to make progress, because as Dan said, there are a lot of knock-on benefits to things like a fixed fee. It forces you to identify waste. Another thing that it does is it enforces you to embrace technology in order to improve your margin. Because after all, if you're operating on an hourly basis, why in the world would you say, yes, by all means, I'll invest deeply in technology that will permit me to work fewer hours? But of course, we move to a fixed fee, all that changes. So I think honestly, Joe, a lot of it is understanding that first the counterparty's changed. So in law, we are seeing a lot more negotiation with, legal ops and with, procurement backing that. But the general counsel still has a say. The general counsel is still responsible for legal quality at the end of the day. And the general counsel can apply the brakes and say, the relationship matters. The overall understanding matters. I need to work with a firm that truly understands my business needs. It can't just be about the rate. Even if the rate used to signal quality, these days we need so much more. And I believe that's what we're really seeing entering the market. And I wish it was as simple to demonstrate as, from the mechanics example I gave earlier, a fan belt that you show the client, look, yeah, here's the fan belt that I replaced. Can't really do that with the strong shoulder that Layla was talking about. But we are finding more and more need for that in the equation to differentiate one firm from others in terms of what they provide.
Any other final questions? Interested actually, Dan and Layla, to what extent do you measure firms on their, I suppose, investment in technology? Do you see that as a sign of of being more inclined towards value than to price, for example?
It depends how much of it you see. So I think a lot of firms that invest in technology, it's behind the scenes, it sort of enables them to function better internally. So it's not always clear to the client that purchasing services, but where it's more at the forefront, so where we've done sort of repeatable work and a law firm found some automation there to move that away, that's great. And actually seeing that means that, okay, you've done this, you've actually explained it quite well why it's there. Happy to use you continually for this, and go to another firm that perhaps doesn't have that in place. It does show that they're thinking slightly outside of the box, and also it does bring the rates down where there is repeatable work, and they can find automation to replace it, and it's the way of the world at the moment. So we would absolutely expect to see it in the law firms as well.
You concur with that, Dan? Or a different perspective?
No, I concur with it. I think that we don't actually measure the firms on technology and technology development. I have to say, I think when it comes to this, that law firms, I agree with Eddie, there is no incentive for them to start speeding things up. And it's the general counsel that need to start demanding the change, because I have real sympathy with law firms. Whilst people are paying you to do what you're doing, just carry on doing it because it's really successful. Now, at some point, that platform will start burning, but we've said that for a long time. And with the O-shape, we're really trying to set that platform on fire. But it's a real challenge because the culture effectively you're trying to shift is one that's been in place for decades when it comes to technology, innovation, mindset, all of these things now that you need a cultural transformation in. So mindset I've just mentioned is really important in this. If you have partners with law firms and the mindset is one of status quo, then frankly, there's no point in measuring on any kind of progress or any kind of technology. I think that what we've measured on in the KPIs we've got in place is a much broader thing, and almost anything you do that takes our relationship forward, that removes waste, that allows us to fix fees, whatever it is, you get credit for that because that mindset is the right one. I don't care whether it was technology. I don't really have genuinely much faith in technology from law firms, because until law firms start putting the rest of the business, the support staff, if you like, on the same footing as the lawyers, then we're never going to get technology breakthroughs. So there are brilliant technologists at law firms that I think would add huge value, but unfortunately still the hierarchy won't let that happen. Eventually it will, but at the moment it's not there. Project managers at law firm, amazing talents, but again, they're always the person that gets the admin tasks at the end of the meeting rather than someone that's genuinely running things, and the lawyer is then almost providing the support to the overall team led by the project manager. This is where we've got to get a shift in mindset, where no longer is it about dispensing knowledge. And I know I'm fundamentally moving away from the question you asked, Richard, but this is no longer dispensing knowledge. It's much more around being able to provide a service. And yes, if technology is part of that service and makes the boat go faster, so to speak, great. But we've both got to benefit from that. And at the moment, I genuinely don't see a mindset of progressiveness. I see a mindset of, at the very top, I think there may be some progression, but a mindset for the large majority of partners at law firms is hang on to what you've got, because who knows what's around the corner.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. We have another question just popped up.
If I could jump in on what Dan said with a quick comment.
Yeah.
One thing we've seen a lot of success with at Simon-Kucher, working with law firms, is moving people toward what used to be a retainer, where we set up some sort of a membership, preferred rates in exchange for all of the things that Dan's talking about, committed to in the relationship. Oftentimes, this is a good deal for both sides, because frequently when we look at it, what the law firm really is interested in doing is, as Dan said, hanging on to what they've got, right? And deepening the client relationship. And what the client is seeking goes far beyond a break on rates. Once they've found a good partner, they'd like access to the senior partner that they choose. They'd like, preferred consultation. There are a number of benefits. So I would encourage people, and if anyone wants to talk further about it, we have some research, but I would encourage people to think, can we structure something that goes outside of any given engagement and into more of a membership or preferred relationship between a purchaser of law firm time and the firm?
Thank you, Eddie. Yep. There's a cat off to my side. That's what's going on here. We have a question from Peter Salgo at Linklaters. Dan, with shadow billing on fixed fees and tracking waste, how do you assess the price you'll pay for technology? Not the same as Eddie's cat. Yeah, that's correct.
Well, so I didn't know. Sorry, I'm glad you said Peter's from Linklaters, because I was going to say that's a private practice question, by the way. Because frankly, I ain't paying for technology that the law firms are developing. Simple as. Okay, so it's that simple. You should be developing technology to improve the business you're offering and the service you're providing. I am not paying for you to develop technology on top of the service you provide. I'll pay a fixed fee for a particular thing, and if you're able to then develop ways of making more money out of that fixed fee, good luck to you, and I'm happy to pay it. But no, I'm not paying for the technology for you to develop it.
Fair enough. Peter, you can come back to that. Back.
I'm sorry, Peter's got a right of response. It doesn't feel right now, but if you do have, please do shout. It just feels wrong to me.
We like a good robust debate. Well, I think we have probably reached the end. I was supposed to leave myself time to do 10 takeaways from the entire 2 days of Briefing 5P 2020, but unfortunately I haven't. I'd like to say a big thank you. I'd rather use that time just to say some thank yous, actually, of course, to Eddie for leading this session, and to his panel, Kirsty, Leila, and Dan. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us over the 2 days, including, of course, to this session. And I've got to say some thank yous internally here, because this has been a massive challenge, spinning up this virtual version of 5P. I said right at the beginning of the 2 days that we've done several very successful sort of 1 hour events, but this has been almost 48 hours. So I have to say, first of all, thank you to Kaylee Olson, who's just going to join me on screen very quickly. This is my wonderful co-chair over the 2 days, who's led many of the best sessions. Deputy editor of Briefing Magazine as well. And of course, behind the scenes, a couple of people that you've spoken to, many of you, Tracy and to Azalise, who've been working so hard on the logistical side of this as well. So thank you very much. There will be many, many more events in either virtual form or in person again very soon. And I hope you will join us once more. Thank you very much. I've been Richard Brent, Editor-in-Chief of Briefing Magazine. Enjoy your evenings.
Thank you very much.